Hi, everyone, and welcome to Café IBTTA. I'm Pat Jones. Our guest today is Carol Kuester. Carol is the Director of Electronic Payment Systems for the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and Bay Area Toll Authority in San Francisco. In that role, she leads two high-profile customer service programs, FasTrak, the regional and statewide interoperable toll payment system, and Clipper, the multi-operator transit fare payment card. In this role, she manages long-term contracts with a combined value over $500 million. Carol also provides vision for regional initiatives as part of an executive team committed to innovation. Carol is a 2013 graduate of the IBTTA Leadership Academy, is a member of the board of ITS California, and currently serves as a chief meeting organizer for IBTTA's Road Usage Charging and Finance Conference that will be held May 15 through 17 in Denver, Colorado. Her co-CMO is Mike Davis of RS&H. Carol, welcome to Café IBTTA. It's great to have you with us.
Good morning, Pat. It is great to be here.
Carol, I love your energy. And this is Café IBTTA, where we drink coffee and talk about things that are interesting, relevant, uplifting, and fun. And today, a big shout out to actor Daniel Craig. On this date, March 2nd, 1968, Daniel Craig, the sixth actor to assume the role of Playboy spy James Bond, was born in Chester, England. So happy birthday, Daniel Craig. We are taking your questions and comments, and we want to get started right away. So to begin, using the chat function, tell us, who is your favorite James Bond actor? Who's your favorite James Bond actor? Tell us in the chat function. I want to see how many people agree with me. All right, we got a Sean Connery, Roger Moore, Daniel Craig. Yeah. Sean, Daniel, woo. Sean, Craig, George Lazenby. Oh, Sean for sure. Sean. What do you think, Carol? Who's your favorite? Oh, there's a Pierce. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Pierce Brosnan. Now that's a good one. But I have to admit, I like Daniel Craig.
I like Daniel Craig, too. He's my favorite. He combines the Playboy sensibility with the rugged, tough guy, dark character. So, all right, why not Dalton? Or maybe he was the worst. Yeah, Christoph, I think maybe you're right. All right, well, Carol, let's get to you. Your bio says that you have a bachelor's in behavioral science and environmental policy and a master's in urban planning. Tell us how you got involved with one of the biggest toll organizations in the United States.
Well, thanks, Pat. I think as I was reflecting on all of your questions over the past few days, really, I'm just so lucky to be able to work in transportation, delivering programs that, promote mobility and manage congestion. I think it might sound lofty, but as a kid, I grew up, camping and exploring the California coastline and mountains. And I always wanted to work some way on environmental and urban quality of life challenges. And I think, not many people get to actually sort of end up in a career where they feel like they are, making a difference in a way that they had hoped to early in their life. So I was lucky to intern at MTC as a graduate student. And it was a great fit. And I came back just, immediately after graduating, and working at the regional level has always just had that right level of interest for me. It's not right down at this micro level of the city, but it's not up at the federal level where you're further away from really providing programs that make a difference to people. So I started out working on transit coordination policy, and then I worked on multimodal traveler information programs when 511 was still kind of a need out there, well before the days of Google Maps. And then I got into delivering Clipper, the transit fare payment program, and FasTrak, where we deal with all kinds of planning and policy issues. But of course, job one is really keeping operations running. And I'm just very lucky to have fantastic teams on both sides delivering those programs. So it's been pretty incredible, lots of fun.
Now, Carol, you have an unusual job in the sense that about half of your job is dedicated to tolling and FasTrak, and the other half is dedicated to transit and the Clipper card program. What is that like? How do you manage the division there?
Well, it keeps me on my toes, but the benefit is I get to work in, not one transportation industry, but two. The transit and tolling have different governing bodies in our region. They have different fund sources and different customers. There are different professional organizations. But on the other hand, there are a lot of, there's a lot of similarities between the two programs. They are, in our region, both delivered through large multi-year contracts. They both manage customer accounts, both have websites and call centers that need to work in order to help people access the program successfully. And the success of whether it's the transit program on Clipper or whether it's the FasTrak program really depends on customers understanding the benefits of the programs. So we have to communicate those benefits. And we have to really think about the end user customer and what they need and what will resonate with them. I think, that's rewarding to me, and I know it's rewarding to many of my staff, and attractive to some of the people who want to come and work on our team. I have to say, though, I got to give a shout out to my boss, Andy Vermeer, who's on the IBTTA board. He's the one who really had the foresight to see that putting tolling and transit together could potentially someday be the basis for more innovation, maybe in the form of like a multimodal mobility account. So those are that's the innovation part of our work that keeps us on our toes.
Well, let's delve a little bit more deeply into that multimodal account. Everybody these days is focused on mobility as a service, and you talk about mobility wallets. You seem to occupy a space that's kind of at the crossroads of tolling and transit, and there could be other forms of mobility as well. Give us your thoughts on sort of the future of the mobility wallet and where all these different transportation systems and modes converge.
Yeah, we'll see, Pat. I think, this has been a subject of discussion for years amongst, I think, planners and program managers in tolling and transit. But I have to say, it's not something that I hear customers asking for. Our customers, first and foremost, want to be able to easily and efficiently pay for tolls and transit. And that's so we need to make sure they can continue to do so. And of course, our customers don't want to pay a high price for either of those things. So we're obligated to make sure that we're, being efficient in the programs that we deliver. That being said, I think particularly with the advent of first last mile micromobility services, which of course have taken a hit during COVID, there was definitely a lot of interest in this. People were raising the question, hey, if I have an account with Clipper and I have an account with FasTrak, why do I also need to then have an account with Lyft or Uber or Lime?
Right.
Isn't there some way that this could, that we could do some work on the back end and perhaps build in some incentives to really encourage people to use the network more efficiently?
Right.
So it's a bold vision.
Carol, speaking of multimodalism, I also like to talk about the I in IBTTA. We're an international organization, and you have a love of being international. And early in your career, you had a wonderful internship with the Robert Bosch Fellowship, where you got to work, if I'm correct, in the office of the German Minister of Transportation. Tell us about that experience and what kind of influence that had on your life.
Yeah, Pat, being a Robert Bosch Fellow was honestly, I have to say, one of the best things I've ever won in my life. I was in Germany with a dozen other American folks. We got language training, and then we really got to pick, where we wanted to work, and had a lot of choices throughout Germany because the Bosch Foundation is so well connected. So, I have to say the main thing that I learned being with the German Minister of Transport at that time was just a reminder, all the work that we do in the public sector and in delivering large transportation programs, we're in a political environment, right? Our programs are all subject to public funding. So it was tremendous to be assigned to the minister's closest staff and to really get to see firsthand, what they paid attention to and what influenced decisions, including things like tabloid newspapers. It was fascinating just to see how top politicians stayed on top of and interpreted public opinion. And the bonus was, it was an opportunity to check out transportation projects all over Germany, including riding on the maglev train test track that's since been dismantled. But it was great. And that year really solidified my ability to speak German and set up some transatlantic relationships that I have maintained till today. So it was a very enriching experience.
I love that notion of what the public officials, what people in the ministry pay attention to. I read somewhere recently that somebody was giving career advice to a person and said, look, if you really want to know where your heart lives, where your passion lies, pay attention to the things that you're paying attention to, right?
Right.
And, one of the things that I think about this because last night was the State of the Union address, and one of the things the Biden administration is really paying attention to is equity. And I know that's one of your concerns. How do we as an industry, as a people, how do we move from lip service to deliver something meaningful to low income or historically disadvantaged communities? How do we really move in this direction of promoting and advancing equity?
Well, Pat, that is really a point of pride for me, and I think for many on my team right now, because we've always, in the programs that we deliver to travelers, delivering programs to the public means that we're serving people of all income levels, people who are maybe in limited English proficient households, disabled travelers. So I'm pleased that we've always had to have this mindset of serving, not just the able-bodied, wealthy traveler, but all parts of the population.
Right.
But we can do better. Our executive director, Teresa McMillan, when she came into her position at MTC, established an equity platform for our agency. And that has really challenged all of us to re-examine our practices from hiring and supervision to program delivery. But what's especially great in my group is that we are leading up a couple of pilots related to providing means-based benefits to travelers. So we have a program on the Clipper transit side called START that allows low-income folks to qualify and then receive discounts on transit by using their Clipper card. We've got 10,000 people using that program now. And, when we were talking earlier about the mobility wallet, we're experimenting with perhaps being able to extend this discount program from transit to express lanes and maybe other parts of our tolling program. So it's like a small way of offering a benefit, to those who need it the most, and also looking at providing multimodal benefits.
Cool. Our guest today is Carol Kuester. She is the Director of Electronic Payment Systems for the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and Bay Area Toll Authority. Please, we want to hear from you. Put your questions in the chat. And I see we have one from Jesse Sandberg. He says, with 25 or so agencies in the Bay Area, how do you build a consensus to move ideas forward?
Well, I know Jesse's from the New York region where they have different kinds of organizational challenges, but they've got one big New York MTA. It's true. One of the hallmarks of our region is the more than 24 transit agencies that serve our region. And of course, it's a lot of fun when you come here because there are cable cars and ferries and buses and trains to ride. The Clipper program has been in operation for decades now. In fact, we're doing a whole system refresh right now. But Jesse, I'm really proud to say that I guess it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a tad more, we set up a governing board specific to the Clipper program that my executive director serves on, as well as the general managers of some of the largest transit agencies, plus representatives from the smaller agencies. And there's quite a bit of formality and process involved, but I have to say, so far, we've been able to inject a lot of transparency into how we, MTC, as the contracting agency, are managing the Clipper program. And I hear a lot of satisfaction on the part of the agencies right now that they can be meaningfully involved. It's a big, complicated program, but customers love it. People love being able to use one fare payment method to go between modes. And we're also digging now into rationalizing some of the fares and being able to offer things like a regional pass. So we have a lot to be proud of, but it does take a lot of work to manage the decision-making process along the way.
Carol, we have a related question from Kevin Tobias with PennDOT. With the Bay Area being so big, do you have any major projects that you're coordinating with all of the other transit agencies besides the Clipper program? Mm-hmm. What other projects?
Yeah, well, I would point you to some of the work going on under the Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force. So in this post-COVID environment, transit agency general managers really came together along with state legislators to look at not only how to bring transit back and make it safe for riders during COVID, but how to innovate and come back even stronger. We have a legislative initiative now related to seamless transit. And so some of the outcomes of the Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery work are a focus on the fare coordination work that I mentioned. We're looking as well at better and more coordinated mapping and wayfinding. We're looking at a regional rail plan. So I would recommend, check out the results of the Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force. Oh, and you know what, Pat? We're also, there's a lot of interest here in comparing, taking a look at European examples and saying, how might we do a better job coordinating services the way they do in, say, Germany or Switzerland.
Right. All right, Carol, I don't want to miss the opportunity to let you talk about the conference that you are the chief meeting organizer of with Mike Davis of RSNH. It's our IBTTA's Road Usage Charging and Finance Conference that will take place May 15 through 17 in Denver. Talk to us about your aspirations for this conference and why you wanted to get involved.
Oh yeah, Pat. Well, road user charging to me is having a pivotal moment. So several states have completed pilots and they have lessons learned to share, and there's funding available. The bipartisan infrastructure law allocated funding for RUC studies. And the tolling community is really starting to grapple with how tolling and road user charging can coexist. So I'm relatively new to this subject matter area on the road user charging side, but I think it's really just the right time to be looking at how do we develop policies that work to support all of the various pricing, road pricing initiatives that we have out there. How do we explain these strategies to customers to ensure that they will buy in and participate? And I just think it's really exciting to be part of transitioning away from the gas tax, which we know is just not a continued sustainable revenue source. So now's the time to make plans and come to Denver. I'm looking forward to learning a lot and hopefully, applying a lot of lessons learned to the work that we do in California and in the West.
Yep. It's going to be an outstanding program. We're putting some of the finishing touches on it later this week, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to push out a preliminary program so folks can see exactly the kind of content they're going to receive. We have a brief question from Brian Patno. How is MTC's CRM project working?
Brian, tell me more. So I take CRM to mean customer relations management.
Right.
And I'm not entirely sure what project Brian's referring to.
Ah,
Salesforce.
Salesforce implementation.
Mhm. Well, so I mentioned earlier that we have the means tested discount program called Clipper Start. And we, in fact, built the eligibility process for that program in Salesforce. So, the rough vision is that we can separately operate and maintain that system, and then interface with the Clipper system provided by Cubic and the FasTrak customer service center provided by Conduent. So I would say it's going well so far. We are pleased, and we think that this start is something that we can continue to build on.
Carol, we often talk about mentoring and mentorship in these Café IBTTAs. I know you have a special mentor that you'd like to talk to us about. Tell us who's been a significant mentor in your life.
Yeah, Pat, I was really reminded about the influence that Marty Wax had on my life when he passed away last year unexpectedly in early 2021. And, it's such a privilege to be able to reflect on how influential he was to me and to so many others. I took Marty's transportation series as a graduate student at UCLA, and that really opened my eyes to the fact that transportation really was a field. But more than that, Marty was just such a kind and fair human being. He was so dedicated to his students and to making UCLA a better place. As you know, he led TRB for years. He also was good at reminding us, urban planning students, that not everyone wants to live in a dense transit-oriented community. I think he was good at reminding us that we're designing programs for people, and we've got to talk to people and listen to what it is that they really want. He was just incredibly kind. He has a lovely family. He's just a very exemplary human being. So I just feel really fortunate that my path crossed Marty's path.
It's interesting you should mention the whole notion of listening, because one of the people who's listening in today is Peter Norton, who was a guest on Café IBTTA a few weeks ago, who's written that book that you showed me, Autonorama. And Marty Wax, as it turns out, was one of Peter's mentors as well. And Peter related a story that at one point he was having a discussion with Marty, and Marty said to Peter, you see this, or I see this differently from you, but I admire the contribution that you're making. And that's a really class thing to do, and to say to peers or people that you're mentoring, to really listen and respect alternative points of view.
Oh, 100%. He was also just an amazing academic. And, I think Marty challenged me to be more careful in my thinking and choice of words, because he wasn't afraid to dig a little deeper and say, what do you really mean by that?
Right.
Yeah, he was a very special human being.
So, Carol, I have to ask you this. Somebody might look at your resume, especially, early in your early years when you were doing internships and whatnot, that what you really love to do is travel. That's why you got involved in transportation. So would they be right? Tell us about your love for travel.
It's true, Pat. I'm totally inspired by travel. I mean, it's thrilling to explore new places. But I also think that one of the big benefits is you come home with a new perspective on your work and on your community, on really what's possible. When we were working to develop the Clipper program, MTC staff and transit operators went to Hong Kong to see a similar program in real life. And that's what convinced them that it would be possible to have this transit fare payment system. compare, whenever you go to, I don't say Spain or Germany, you see tolling programs that inspire and provide new ideas. So yes, I personally really benefit, I think, from breaking up the day-to-day and having the opportunity to explore, but I also think there are professional benefits.
Yep. It feels like we are moving into a period of time when people can spend more time together. And in another conversation, you said to me, I love conferences. I love making connections among different people. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, what a thing to be known for, huh? But it's true. It's true.
Carol loves conferences.
Yeah. I think my path not taken might have been to try to follow in, Marty and Brian Taylor's kind of esteemed footsteps and be an academic. So, what I really love about conferences is the teaching and learning opportunities and making connections with people. In our region is really big, and we're bigger than some European countries with our population out here. And so sometimes our best peers are not local, but instead are national or international. So that's another reason why I really love conferences, because I get to talk to people who are grappling with similar challenges. And it is wonderful just to put people in touch with one another, so that whatever need or problem they're looking to solve, someone might have that resource or opportunity. And I really do love connecting people when I know that they've got a shared interest in something. So it's true, Pat. I'm a geek. I love conferences.
Now, Carol, we like to talk about the future here too. So I'm thinking about a kind of a personal future for you. You're married, you have 2 sons. Where do you think their lives will take them? They're now in kind of their early adulthood, formative years. What do you see for them? Will it be in transportation?
Boy, Pat, I wish, I have to admit, I like to have a plan, and these past couple of years have really not helped me in that regard. As my boys as young adults, they're figuring out their path. They're looking at construction management and political science and business. I couldn't tell you. I would encourage them, at this point, to try lots of things and see what's a fit for them. And I just, I have every faith, actually, that they will find a wonderful community that they can contribute to. I'm really proud of both of them. But I couldn't tell you where that will be geographically or subject matter wise. So I'm going to have to hang loose and be supportive and let the future unfold here.
Beautiful. So Peter Norton has corrected my mangled version of the Marty Wax quote here in the chat. He says, I see this differently than you do, but I really like what you have to add. And Martha Salinas asks, will you please provide the title of the book both you and Carol recommended? Carol's going to hold it up here. And it's called Autonorama. Autonorama. That's auto, AUTONORAMA, Autonorama, and it's by, the author is Peter Norton. You can find it on Amazon or wherever books are sold, and I highly recommend it. I think you'll really enjoy it. Carol, I'm just going to make a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to come back to you for some final words of wisdom. So everybody, don't forget to complete the survey at the end of today's Café IBTTA. We're really interested in hearing what you think. Here's some upcoming events. Next Wednesday, we do not have Café IBTTA, but in its place, we have a special hour-long webinar called Evaluating Realistic Risk, the Russian Cyber Threat. Our guest is Jake Williams, a cybersecurity expert and former member of the National Security Agency's hacking group. All right, the hacking group. So this guy knows what he's talking about. Our first in-person meeting of the year, the Technology Summit, will happen March 19 through 22 in Orlando, Florida. It's 4 days of packed meeting content, including numerous roundtables, workshops, and special events on Saturday and Sunday. We have things like the Executives Roundtable, Young Professionals Event, Women in Innovation, Procurement, Communications Roundtable, Backyard Olympics, and so much more. And more on Sunday, technical tour, community service project for U.S. Hunger. Go to the IBTTA website, ibtta.org, and check out all of our meetings and events. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, after that is the Road Usage Charging and Finance Conference, May 15 through 17 in Denver, that Carol Kuester is one of the co-chief meeting organizers for. So, Carol, what final words of wisdom do you have before we sign off today?
Well, Pat, actually, I just want to say that I think it's great that with Café IBTTA, you give us all a venue to learn about one another in the tolling industry and go a little deeper. One belief that I really have is that trust is the basis of all good working relationships. And I'm a big believer that we build trust by getting to know one another through conversations like this. So thank you very much for that. I guess one other little mention that I want to throw out is that we are pleased today at the Toll Authority to be releasing an RFP for open road tolling. This has been a big procurement that we've been teeing up, and we're excited to get going on that work. So IBTTA members, have a look, and I hope we can engage someone great to deliver this significant project for us. And then I guess finally, Pat, I just want to give a shout out to everybody on my team at MTC and BATA. What's kept me at MTC for 21 years is the people. I mean, the work is incredible, but the people are smart and caring and dedicated. And I'm so grateful for the folks that I get to work with every day, and very much in awe of the folks on my team and all that they deliver and have delivered throughout COVID and remote work. So we're a lucky bunch over here.
That's a beautiful sentiment, the gratitude and trust in building relationships. Carol, thank you so much for being our guest today. It's great to have you with us. And to all our viewers, be safe, keep in touch, and we'll see you down the road.